Dragonfruit by Makiia Lucier. Chapter 17. They searched the cave, every corner of every passageway, under every rock. Vici helped, but nothing was found of the newly hatched sea dragon or the person who might have taken it. The ride back to the opposite shore was made in silence, and then 2 fires. Honolly saw the flames through the trees. When they returned to the beach, it was to find a torch had been put to the dragon. She burned brightly along the shore as onlookers watched from a safe distance. For Honolly, the smell was familiar and sickening. Keeper Katamara stood off to one side, berated by a young man wearing official-looking tapa robes. The official shook an accusatory finger in front of Katamara's nose and flung his arms about in a full temper. He broke off when Queen Magalahi and everyone else drew up on their kandayos. Both Katamara and the official bowed. "What has happened?" Queen Magalahi turned away from the flames to regard the 2 men. "Why are you shouting?" The official bowed again and said hurriedly, "Forgive me, Your Grace, but this man has just set fire to an enormous amount of gold squid." He pointed to the dragon. "Enormous! I brought workers to collect the scales and remove the fat for oil. He has ruined everything." "You said burn it," Katamara muttered. "I said don't burn it. Do not burn it. I was quite clear." Katamara hunched his shoulders. "My ears, they don't hear sometimes." The animal keeper looked so frail and pitiful that the official suddenly found himself the target of many outraged stares. Sam directed curt words his way. Keeper Katamara seized the animals in the menagerie, in death and in life. He glanced at the flames, looking away quickly when the frill caught fire. Whether she burned or not was his decision to make. She, Honolly heard, no longer it. Queen Magalahi looked down her nose at the official. "How old are you, child?" 20 years, Your Grace." 20. And whom do you suppose you speak to in such a way, in that tone, with those words? Surely not an elder." Beside Honolly, Sam sighed. The official's mouth opened. The tips of his ears burned. He turned to Katamara and bowed. "I did not mean to speak with such disrespect, Keeper Katamara. My deepest apologies." Katamara cupped a hand to one ear. "Eh?" The official's nostrils flared. "I said, my deepest apologies." Katamara's expression cleared. "Ah, fine." Both men were dismissed. Katamara returned to the sea dragon. The official marched off to address a group of people standing beside large wooden barrels. "Samati, stay until it's done," Queen Magalahi said. "One of us should be here." "I will." Queen Magalahi looked over at Hanali. "Return with Samati. You'll stay in my pavilion for the time being." "Thank you, Your Grace." The queen departed soon after, and most of the guards went with her. Liko and Bayani joined the onlookers. Sam dismounted. It was just the 2 of them now. "You don't have to come with us. Tomorrow, I mean." Honolly dropped lightly onto the sand. "It sounds like I do." Sam kept his eyes on the fire away from her. "A life here comes with expectations, Honolly. I won't stop you if you wish to go. You are used to your freedom." Freedom had its own price, like loneliness. She tucked her herd away out of sight. "Do you want me to go?" "It's the last thing I want." Sam ran a hand along his kandayo's mane, thick, twisting strands the color of jade. "2 men showed up the other day, trying to sell me a fake dragon egg. They were traitors." "What?" Indignation washed over her. "How?" "They bought a rattler egg on Messina and had it painted." Sam worked through a knot in the mane, his fingers gentle. "It looked real. Then I saw the spots." A faint smile appeared. "A very wise 8-year-old once told me that the shell of a dragon fruit is flawless, without blemish." Honolly had told him, long ago, prattling on about sea dragons. He had remembered. "Does this happen often? People trying to trick you?" "Oh, yes," he said. "I've met Captain Bragadin. He sold me a pair of sea dragons last year. When I bought them, they looked healthy, their color was good. But the day after he sailed off, their scales turned gray, and they couldn't stop coughing. We kept them separated in case whatever ails them passes to the others." "Those dragons are old," Honolly explained. "Captain Bragadin, that charlatan, what crime hadn't he committed?" "Well past being able to produce dragon fruit. He must have given them some sort of tonic so that they looked healthy, at least long enough for him to sell them to you." "So they're no danger to the others?" "No." A vein ticked along Sam's temple. He looked to the water's edge, where the onlookers were strangely quiet for so large a crowd. In their silence, dragon flesh smoked and bones splintered, crumbling along the shore. "I do not intend to kill anything today," he said. Hanali placed her hand on the Condayo's mane beside Sam's. You'll be Lord Protector one day after Lord Isco. Sam nodded. It had been decided long ago, and it had never been a secret. 27 people are alive because of what you did. Or, 27 people are alive because of what you did here, Samatiyama. It was not just me. Their fingers did not touch. But she felt some of his tension ease. It was all she could do. Hanali, he said, the woman with the green dress, what did you see? The dragon bit her. In half. I did not imagine it. When Sam did not respond. Maybe what she said is true. Maybe the gods are watching over us? What? Her hand slipped away. Why was he smiling? One moment you're talking about sea dragon mating rituals sounding very scientific, and the next you're telling me the gods are watching over us. They're opposites, Hanali. Which did you believe? She had never considered such a question. I understand science, she said after a minute. There are rules, but I was born in the Nomi Nomi just like you. I believe in both. Prince Samati? A guard approached, asking for a word, and in their discussion on science and faith came to an end. I'll be back, Sam told Hanali, and the two men went off, deep in discussion, about the state of some nearby guard towers. Hanali tied both their condayos to a tree. Sam reminded her of a child's top, spinning in every direction. So much for him to do. Their earliest childhood had been defined by freedom, their only responsibility to keep out of the way and return in time for supper. She wondered when he slept. She was still wondering as she walked down to the shore to stand beside Katamara, who stood closest of all to the dragon. They watched her burn, neither speaking. There were tears on the old man's cheeks, and Hanali thought that here was someone who mourned as she did, grieved for the dragon as a dragon, and not for what the dragon could give. When Katamara bowed, Hanali bowed, and she spoke words that were nearly lost among the sound of crackling dragon scale. May Taga find your spirit and guide you home to the sea beyond, in clear water where danger will never catch you. Among the coral and caves where the bounty is full, alongside your ancestors and their ancestors, that loneliness never hold you. His kingdom your own, beloved child of God, beloved child of the gods, Katamara finished. Hanali looked at him, disbelieving. The prayer had been drawn from another, words added and removed to honor dragons, not men. But the last line had been Hanali's own entirely, uttered for the first time on a dragoner near Little Kalama. Katamara could not have known it. They regarded one another for some time, until Hanali repeated, beloved child of the gods. She did not ask. Later, she told herself, when this day was long past and he did not have tears in his eyes, then she would ask. Only after the sea dragon had burned to a great pile of bone and ash did Hanali walk away. The sun had begun to descend, and the crowd had largely gone. Sam stood by the condayo speaking to someone, an older woman sitting on a large rock, hands on her knees, waiting patiently. Hanali stopped. Penina had been her nurse from her earliest years. Penina had fed her, clothed her, scolded her, loved her. And she had been left behind when Hanali and her father had gone. Penina rose and waved with both hands, face wreathed in a smile. Hanali's lower lip trembled, and a moment later she was running. Penina had found room for Hanali at an inn with Sam's silver squid, but with the queen's offer it was no longer needed. They found themselves in one of the larger chambers of the royal pavilion. Hanali sat neck deep in a bath, Penina perched on a nearby stool. On her lap was a basket full of hibiscus and plumeria blooms, red hibiscus, white plumeria. She busied herself plucking petals and tossing them one by one into the bathwater. Did you know, Penina? Yes, Penina understood Hanali's question, had known of her father's plan to steal the dragon fruit. I had a cousin who had a canoe. He always needed silver, this cousin, so he took you, your papa, and the giant pink egg far away, and he asked no questions. Not only did Penina know about the theft of the dragon fruit, she had helped. Why would you take such a risk? Penina tossed a petal at Hanali's nose. What risk did I take? Penina, there was no risk, only choices. Help my girl, or don't help my girl. It was simple. Hanali took Penina's hand and pressed it to her cheek, then let go. What are you doing with all these flowers? I don't need so many. Penina's expression turned stubborn. I'll give you flowers if I wish. I have missed 10 birthdays. Only 9. Hanali trailed off, realizing Penina was right. She had turned 18 10 days ago. The same day she had discovered the sea dragons in the grotto on Little Kalama. Hanali Arihi, did you forget your own birthday? Hanali nodded. There had been no reason to remember. Penina's eyes turned bright. She tipped the entire basket over the tub. The flowers tumbled into the water, red hibiscus and white plumeria, making Hanali laugh. Hanali laugh. Penina had brought clothing, not an animal keeper's tunic or a dragonair's stark black uniform. She brought dresses. She brought skirts and pretty blouses, delicate sandals and embroidered nightgowns, clothing Hanali had once taken for granted. Tonight she wore a white lace blouse that revealed her shoulders and collarbone. Her skirt was a cheerful yellow, as bright as a ripe banana, and her hair had been brushed loose. Around her neck was a single strand of plumeria. It was as they shared a meal that Penina returned to their earlier conversation. The day you left, I was afraid, Penina said. So many things went badly. What sort of things? Lady Rona, for one. Penina poured coconut milk over a bowl of diced breadfruit. She overheard us and threatened to go to the queen. Your father begged her to keep his secret. Hanley remembered that conversation. They had not guarded their words near a sleeping child. She will kill you if she finds you, Arihi. You can never come home. Then we learned there were 4 soldiers guarding the egg, Penina said. Not 2 like we thought. Your papa came away limping and bloodied, but with the dragon fruit. She set the pitcher aside, reached for her spoon. And my cousin was late with the canoe. He went to the wrong cave. He waited for 2 hours behind a rock, and you were speaking in your sleep. We waited for 2 hours behind a rock, and you were speaking in your sleep in your papa's arms. There was no way to quiet you. I thought Lord Isco would find us. Surely I thought this was the end. Hanali's supper remained untouched. How desperate her father must have been, how determined. Did Lord Isco know you helped us? Penina swallowed before she spoke. I think so. When you left, they took away our pavilion. I was sent to work in the prison kitchens. I didn't have to sleep there, but it was no fun, That mean, vindictive man. She should have left him in the dragon. I'm so sorry. Me too, Penina said. But your prince, he tours the prison 5-6 years ago and sees me. He says, Why, you are Hanali's Penina, and brings me to his home. She pointed her spoon at Hanali. Eat. Alongside the breadfruit were roasted vegetables and white rice, and a whole fish, fried and crisp, laid out on a platter. Hanali picked at her supper, saying absently, Sam isn't my prince. Not for long, Penina agreed. 20 young ladies in and out of this pavilion. He'll be one of theirs soon. Hanali stopped picking. 20? All with good skin, Penina remarked. The queen is getting older, my girl. Princess Oleana still sleeps, and Prince Samati needs daughters. Or his mother well again. Hanali set her spoon down, her appetite lost. She had noticed the visitors at the shore and throughout the pavilion. She had not thought any of it. The queen's home had always been filled with guests. It was strange to think of Sam marrying, strange and unpleasant. Does Rona still live in the city? No, a tidal wave killed her. Penina's revelation came so matter-of-factly it took a second for the words to sink in. Hanali gaped. When? 9 years ago, during a typhoon. It was a bad one. What about, where is your cousin? A shadow came over Penina's face. He did not come home from Raqqa. No word, no canoe, nothing. Her father, Lord Rana, Penina's cousin? 3 deaths, all tied to the sea. Penina, do you think? Yes. Penina set aside her spoon. I think the sea dragons belong to Taga. It, who is one of the meaner gods, and I think that when we take what belongs to the gods, they want something in return. They are not so different from us that way. Who knows what became of that captain? What captain? Eramondo. He was part of Princess Oleana's guard. Do you remember? Yes, of course she did. Captain Arrow had guarded them on the last journey across the archipelago. He had been a particular friend of Sam's, always ready with a joke, endlessly patient with a young boy and his questions. Lord Isco had gone away to tend to a broken heart, but he had left Arrow, his second-in-command, in charge. What does he have to do with anything? 10 years ago, Penina said, Captain Aramondo was to take the 3 eggs from the menagerie and bring them here to the Queen's pavilion. Hanali knew what happened next. An earthquake had rocked the city, overturning the carriage and leaving 2 precious dragon eggs cracked open on the street. It was that night her father had stolen the last remaining egg. Was the captain blamed for those broken eggs? It was an earthquake. He wasn't blamed for that. It was after. Penina held a cup in both hands but did not drink from it. The driver was hurt when the carriage overturned. He was bleeding, on the road, calling for help. Captain Aramondo did not help him. Instead, he fell to his knees and started to eat one of the dead dragons, right there on the Queen's Road, with everyone watching and wearing the uniform of a royal captain. There was blood on his face and hands, dragon bone in his teeth. Some said he looked like a wild animal. Hanley froze. She could picture all of it. Penina had described the scene too well. What happened to him? Penina shrugged. The dragon was dead. No use to anyone, so he wasn't punished for stealing. Like my father would have been. Penina nodded. Lord Isco took away Aramondo's captainship for actions unbecoming. Then we heard he left the city, and who could blame him? People pointed at him in the streets, made jokes. You can still hear the songs today about Arrow the Egg Eater. Hanley winced. He was not the only one who had feasted on dragons. What sort of name would she be given? What kind of songs would be sung? Where did he go? Who knows? Penina said. Home, maybe. His family had a pavilion somewhere past Namamagura, before the village of Pagomaya. No one I know has seen him. She reached out and covered Hanley's hands with her own. The guards at the lagoon are no good with secrets. Everyone knows about the new dragonfruit, and that you'll help Prince Samati find it. You cannot do this, Hanley. It isn't safe. How can I say no? Hanley's purple-stained satchel was on a nearby chair, ready once again to spill its secrets. My choices are like yours. Do I help Princess Oleana or don't I? Simple. Penina snatched her hand away. You're 18, and you think you can throw my words back at me? And when Hanley started to smile, Penina said, The last time an egg was stolen, 3 people died. Is that what you want? Hanley's smile faded. She thought of Sam. Of course not. Then you must find another way. You and your prince. Because if you take something from the sea dragon god, Hanley, my girl, he will take something from you, and you will not get it back. Chapter 18. Though he lived in the bay with the other unmarried males, chambers continued to be kept for Sam in the royal pavilion. He made use of them, as it would be quicker to bathe here before seeking out his cousin Jejomar, who was an embarrassment and a disgrace. Sam's apartments opened onto a courtyard at dusk. He passed a series of connecting gardens, veering behind statuary and potted palms whenever he heard female voices, mothers and daughters around every corner. Plumeria blossoms scented the air. He would not have been the only one to have seen Jejomar fleeing the dragon, running away when so many had stayed to help. Even Lord William. William, the ambassador of Raka's fragile brother, had stayed. And yes, understood, sea dragons were scary. Maybe Jejomar could be forgiven for running. But he had not come back, had not returned to check on the living, to help in any way. And that was why Sam was going to find him and wring his. Sam whipped behind a statue of the god Olafet just as a group of ladies appeared around the corner. The statue was twice the height of a man, built on a pedestal. Olafet wore a fierce expression and no clothes. He held an outrigger between both hands as though preparing to crush it. Yes, Mama, I am trying, came a testy voice. I am wearing my best dresses, and I spend hours on my hair each day. It's not my fault Prince Samati keeps disappearing. Did you see how he slayed the dragon? A second female asked, wistful and dreamy. Sam drew farther behind the statue, careful that no part of him was left exposed. The prince is so brave and handsome, and he does not seem to care for Anna, Mama. May I have him? Your sister comes first, a third female voice, older, exasperated. Anna, you strike harder. I hear the prince is fond of the ukulele. Perhaps you can play. I hate the ukulele. The women rounded another corner, their voices trailing away. Sam stepped from behind the statue, only to come face to face with Uncle Isco and Bayani. His uncle wore black robes, left open to reveal one trousered leg and one bandaged leg. He leaned heavily on a cane. Hiding behind statues, Samati, Uncle Isco said dryly. Has it truly come to this? The man was everywhere you did not wish him to be. Uncle, how are you standing? Here, let me carry. Stay where you are. I am no invalid to be carried. You shouldn't be on that leg. I offered already, Prince Samati, Bayani said. Uncle Isco gave him a look, then turned back to Sam. Where are you off to? My aunt's? Ah, Uncle Isco shifted his cane from one hand to the other. Do you know, I've never seen that boy run as fast as he did this morning. Not in all his 17 years. Sam wanted to return to his hiding place beside the statue. Jejomar's embarrassment was his embarrassment. Who else had seen? That reminds me, training starts in a month, Uncle Isco said. New soldiers. I'll see to it your cousin has a place. Sam had begun his training at the age of 5 at his uncle's side, but most started at 14. I don't think a soldier's life is for him, and his mother will not like it. Neither would Jejomar. Uncle Isco's expression darkened. His mother has had a say for far too long. That boy is coddled, and if he is not taken in hand, he will rot from the inside out. I will speak to his mother. He tapped his cane once. I'm off to supper. I'll make your excuses to your grandmother and your lady guests. Again. Thank you. Uncle Iska walked on, with some difficulty. Over his shoulder he said, let us cross Lady Anna from our list. It is baffling. What sort of person does not enjoy the ukulele? Sam found his Aunt Chessa at the back of his pavilion, standing before an open fire burning things. No one had come to the door, and when he removed his boots and let himself in, he found empty halls and chambers. Where was everyone? He went to find Jajamar, but the smell of smoke and flames had running toward the rear of the pavilion. He came to a halt when he saw Rangi, his old cook, peeking out a back window. She told us to go, Rangi explained, worry in her voice. She was screaming, Prince Samati, throwing things. She made room so that Sam could see, but I thought someone should stay. Thank you. Night had fallen completely. His Aunt Chessa wore a dark dress and no shoes. Her hair was different from this morning. It no longer fell to her knees, but was short and sparse, floating about her head in tufts. Aghast, he said, she cut off all her hair? No, this is her normal hair, Rangi assured him. You've only seen the wigs. Guilt washed over him, warring with the outrage he felt on Hanley's behalf. I told her she didn't have to leave right away. Rangi patted his arm. I don't think that's it, or not all of it. She was upset after you left this morning, but we've seen that sort of mad before. Then Panina left, and then Master OK left. Her husband left her? For good this time. Rangi lowered her voice. He said he wasn't moving into some hut by the city gates, and she screamed at him for spending all her squid. And then Master Jajamar came home upset over the sea dragon at the lagoon, and it has been a very bad day for this family, Rangi concluded, shaking her head. What is she burning? Sam asked. I didn't see. Maybe Master OK's things? That made an awful sort of sense. A well-rested Fetu poked his head out from Sam's collar, yawning. Rangi smiled. Hello, Fetu. Are you hungry? She plucked an orange from a bowl, and Fetu hopped onto the table, chirping. Prince Samati, why don't you leave him with me? You know your auntie isn't fond of bats. Sam agreed. A pair of sandals was always kept for him by the back porch. He put them on and went to the fire. Aunt Chessa? He touched her arm. She jumped, startled, as though he had been calling her name. Come away, Auntie Chessa. Are you hurt? Hurt? Auntie Chessa looked down at her bare feet covered in dirt and grass. No. Sam could feel her trembling as he led her to the porch. She sat down on the back steps and said, We are ruined, and burst into tears. Helplessly, Sam patted her shoulder, murmuring useless things, but she only cried harder. He looked around to see Rangi framed in the window. Help, he mouthed. Rangi came out and settled beside his aunt, rubbing her arm consolingly. Sam went to put out the fire. A rainwater basin had been built behind the guest pavilion, shielded from view by a wall of tangled bougainvillea. The basin was full due to the recent typhoon. Sam used a bucket to throw water onto the flames. Fetu found a much smaller pail and helped, diving into the basin and flying over the fire. Man and bat made repeated trips until nothing remained but the smell of smoke. Sam sniffed smoke and something else. He wondered what else his aunt had burned besides her useless husband's belongings. The night smelled strange in a familiar way, though he could not think why. He set the bucket down, checking one last time for any missed embers, then returned to the pavilion. Fetu, perhaps remembering his aunt's aversion to bats, vanished beneath Sam's shirt. The kitchen was empty. He could hear his aunt and Rangi farther down the hall. He went in the other direction, stopping before a chamber that had been his, and knocked. There were retching sounds from within, and eventually a familiar voice, full of irritation. Mama, I'm fine, Jajamar called out. Leave me alone. It's me. Open the door. Silence. Jajamar, let me in. Shuffling sounds followed. The door opened to reveal his cousin, pale and sweating. The smell of sickness wafted from the bowl placed on the floor by the bed. What's wrong with you? Sam demanded. Something I ate, maybe. Jajamar's response was vague. He sighed when Sam placed a hand on his forehead. Ah, that feels nice. Sam turned his hand away. No fever, at least. Sit down, he said, determined not to feel sorry for him. Jajamar had moved into the chamber years ago, but there were still signs that had once belonged to Sam. A pair of ukuleles hung from hooks on the wall. Small, wooden carvings lined the windowsills. Condayos mostly, with flowing manes and a pair of sea dragons. Carvings of the original dragons from the menagerie. Jajamar lowered himself onto a chair. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Making sure you made it home safe. Sam went to stand by an open window where the air was fresher. That was a long run from the lagoon. Guilt flooded Jajamar's face. He looked at the mat beneath his bare feet. I should have stayed to help. I thought about it. As long as you thought about it, that's the important part. How were they related? How did they share a drop of the same blood? No one died, if you wondered. He was a big sea dragon, J.J. Mars said defensively. It had teeth. What did you need from me anyway? We could have used the help. Oh, please, you didn't need me. I'm sure you took care of everything with your stupid bat and your stupid machete. We can't all be as brave as you. There are babies braver than you, Sam snapped. Fatu popped up from Sam's collar and bared his teeth. Infants in their mother's arms are braver than you. I know! J. Jomar dropped his head in his hands. I'm sorry. Sorry, Fatu. Fatu, only a little mollified, became a tiny bat-shaped marking on the back of Sam's hand. Silence filled the chamber. J. Jomar looked pathetic, and he was ill. Now Sam felt bad, which he resented. What did you eat? Bad fish, J. Jomar said. Is anyone else sick? I don't know. He needs rest, Samati. Aunt Chessa stood in the doorway, her eyes and nose red. There was still grass and dirt on her feet. I'll go, Sam said. J.J. Mark can't move into the bayou. Not now. Aunt Chessa brushed away tears from the back of her hand. I'm alone and can't do without him. I know you'll see that finding other lodging is impossible. I'm too distraught. J.J. Mark lifted his head. Mama? Your husband can't just leave, Sam said. He's your husband. I'll find him and bring him back. I don't want him here. I won't make him stay if he doesn't wish it. Sam would be happy to never see Okay again. What were you burning, Auntie? Aunt Chessa looked at J.J. then away. It's a private matter, and a humiliating one, Sam saw. Her wigless state made her appear smaller, older. He was not accustomed to thinking of his aunt as someone to protect, only tolerate. Better to let this go. Stay until you've found someplace suitable. Please, no more fires. His aunt nodded stiffly. She left without having spoken a single word to her son. J.J. Marsh slumped even further down into his chair. You shouldn't have done that, Sam. Poor relations are like barnacles, don't you know? You'll never get rid of us now.